Hello and welcome to the TDSM podcast. I want to welcome Dave from Add to Cart to the show today. Dave is a OG Etsy seller. He got on Etsy back in 2016. Back before Etsy promoted listings turned into what's now called Etsy ads and what Dave calls the Etsy ad apocalypse, where Etsy basically started forcing sellers to participate in offsite ads. Dave is really like an OG Etsy seller and Etsy YouTuber. Like, Dave was on YouTube before pretty much any of us were. And he was really not only the inspiration for my channel, but honestly, the core reason that I was able to go basically from 0 to over 7 figures in my first calendar year on Etsy and Shopify. So I really owe this guy everything. That's not even an exaggeration. Like, Dave sat on a call with me once for free and taught me every single thing that I needed to know about Etsy ads. And I really attribute that training and his time to then, those sales numbers that we saw in that following year. And our numbers started hitting great heights even before COVID started. He has gone from farmers markets to festivals to then building wildly successful Etsy and Shopify brands to then helping his students build their own brands to 7 figures and beyond. He has over a dozen case studies of his students doing over 7 figures, me included. I am one of them. So again, I just cannot thank this guy enough. He is really seen it all as when it comes to Etsy and just the evolution of Etsy, of how things have changed over time. You're definitely gonna wanna stay until the end. This is a super value-packed episode today. So all right, guys, without further ado, let's get into the show. Welcome, everybody, to the Till Death Stop Me podcast, because the inevitable is one day we are going to die. Sounds pretty morbid, right? But you want to know what I think is even more depressing? Merely existing on this planet and not achieving, not going, not experiencing, not meeting, not having every single thing that I've ever wanted in this life. We have one shot to do this thing right. So we might as well experience every single thing we've ever wanted, have every single thing that we've ever wanted, build communities with long-lasting, meaningful relationships. Most importantly, achieve our ideal version of what success looks like to us. So that is why in this podcast, we're gonna be interviewing people that, even against all the odds, have been able to do that and are working constantly every single day to build their ideal lifestyle. So without further ado, thank you for tuning in, guys. Let's get into this episode. All right, guys, and without further ado, welcome Dave to the TDSM podcast today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. So let's just hop right into it. Give us, your background, your journey from where you kind of started to where you are today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I started back in like 2013 selling online, selling my handmade crafts with my wife's handmade crafts on a store called Store Envy, on a website called Store Envy. That didn't turn out so well, so we started to sell at markets, art shows, music festivals, etc. We didn't like doing that eventually, so we started on Etsy. We made Etsy work, and then we became so successful that I started teaching others how to do it. And that's how I'm on YouTube today as Add to Cart. And that's how actually I met you as well.
Yeah, I know. I put that in the intro that you were such a huge part of my journey. Like, you literally, for nothing, just like got on the phone with me and like gave me a free consultation. And basically, I owe pretty much all of my success to you. And it's just so crazy that, where we are today and how, all the things that have manifested and all the new things that we've been working on. And so, yeah, just thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that. That was a great call. And I always reference you as one of my star students as well. It's been an awesome time watching your journey as well.
I was literally like one of those students that took every single thing that you said of like the Bible and just like executed immediately. So yeah, thank you. I mean, you were the ad master then, you're still the ad master now, and yeah, your content is just A1 for sure. So because you've been around for so freaking long, what have been the most interesting like moments of truth that you've seen with this like projection of or this, journey of Etsy over the last, decade at this point?
Interesting moments of truth. Wow, that's a big question. I would say the biggest moment of truth when it comes to the Etsy platform in general is that your product has to be good. Now in I know that's like a extremely general statement, but now in 2023 and moving into 2024, there is a sea of Etsy sellers and there's a lot of competition. What I've seen most stores stand out with is having either a unique product, something that hasn't been done before, or somebody being early or new or the first to a certain niche, to a certain product, etc. That's been the biggest moment of truth in my journey coaching other students and watching others grow. You can still be extremely successful on Etsy if you hustle in high competition niches. That's I'm not saying don't enter high competition niches. Lots of money to be made there. My first successful store was in jewelry even back in 2018 when it was extremely saturated and competitive then. And you did extremely well and do extremely well in jewelry as well. But that's the biggest moment of truth recently, at least for me. In order to answer that question, really specifically, I'd have to contemplate for a really long time, but that's what just comes to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we could narrow it down, it's just more so like that evolution of Etsy. Like, tell us a little bit like what were like some core things that happened back then that have, changed to today, like back in 2023, or the biggest things that you've seen change. I mean, I guess you kind of hit it on the head already with the competitiveness, but is there anything else that you could point out?
Yeah, definitely, actually, so Printful was approved in 2017 on Etsy. So it was a semi-new thing. Back then, Etsy didn't really know what to do with it, and then they finally came around and approved it. So I watched print on demand rise to popularity on Etsy. When I started, Etsy was all handmade stuff, and it was like a I wouldn't say tightly knit community, but the offerings on Etsy was, extremely narrowed down to really handmade stuff. So, the one of the evolution points of Etsy that I've watched happen is print on demand, digital downloads, and things like that come to popularity and come to success. Another thing I've seen happen on Etsy throughout the years is the evolution of ads with the platform. It used to be called promoted listings where you could control your bid. You could have auto bid, manual bid, and you could essentially force your way to the top with just being willing to spend money. And if you knew your numbers, you could bid higher than everyone else and get up there. So then they changed it to Etsy ads, force you to do Google ads. Then finally, after listening to the community, changed it to what we have today, Etsy ads. So print on demand rise, digital downloads rising, and the ads platform changing a lot are a few things that I've watched evolve throughout the years. And then another thing is that back in like 2017 and 18, the more that you repeated something in a title, the higher you would rank. So you could just abuse that. And back then, like the term Etsy hack had much more weight to it. There really was things you could do to manipulate the algorithm and manipulate the search results. You could clump listings together and be like to have 10 of your products on one search result page. And it wasn't the wild west of Etsy per se because Etsy was founded in 2005, but it was definitely much different and the algorithm wasn't as tight and less seemingly fickle back then.
Hmm.
But there's been a lot of developments. So, yeah.
Do you feel like in the, with all these changes and all that, and obviously the more the competitors, more competitiveness, but do you feel like there's more buyers on the platform as well? Like, do you think it's scaled proportionally, or do you think that it's kind of getting to a point where it's not proportional and the competition is kind of ruining it for people?
No, they're adding buyers a lot. Etsy,
Yeah.
if you go and look at their financial reports, I was just looking at the 22 2022 one a couple days ago for a video mini documentary I'm making. They added a lot of buyers, and that's one of their main scaling points is how many buyers they wanna add.
Okay. Yeah. I would agree with that. I definitely think that I don't know if it's perfect proportion, but I think that, I mean, there's just an overwhelmingly a lot more people shopping online. And like, I have a fundamental belief that we're still very much like in the infancy of this e-commerce thing that we think that like is oversaturated and stuff. So, what do you think Etsy going public did to the platform? Do you think that it's helped merchants or really only helped their own interests or, how do you feel about that?
That's a great question, actually. I have a lot to say, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. It helped the platform a lot. It gave that corporate drive to it. It helped and it didn't help. So there's 2 sides of the coin of this. It's like a pickle catch 22 type situation. It helped a lot because it forced Etsy to want to grow in a corporate sense, like make more money. And with that type of drive comes development on the platform, re- uh, acquiring new buyers for the platform, that kind of stuff, more money for development, etc.
Mm,
So it was a good thing in that aspect, Etsy having more funding rather than being like a humble, small handmade platform from which it started. Going public gave it that extra funding to do lots of stuff that it couldn't have done otherwise. That's awesome. But then on the flip side of that coin, it came an aspect of Etsy as a corporation only not only, but caring a lot about the stock price, the numbers, and the reports. And in order to do that, they have to care more about that than, say, the Etsy seller community, which is the lifeblood of the platform. But they overlooked certain opinions of sellers in order to satisfy the stakeholder, stock price, corporate side of things. So it helped and it didn't help. It was like a not kiss of death, but it was a necessary evil, I guess, would be the best analogy I could use for that.
mm.
It helped and it didn't help the community on the seller side of things, but it brought a lot of buyers. So there's a lot to be said about that, but that's it in a nutshell.
So what do you feel then about like this next rendition of merchants, right? Because does that mean that it's going to be no more hobbyists, only like legit people coming in wanting to go like balls to the wall, like full time on it? What do you think that next generation of sellers is going to look like?
That's another great question. Yeah, I have like a philosophical answer to this, if you will. So yeah, the next generation of sellers definitely are more from what I've noticed, people start Etsy stores wanting to only make money. That's totally fine. I mean, that's why people start Etsy stores, period, no matter what. However, if that's the only aspect involved, there sometimes it makes a more fragile situation to grow because if you don't do well right off the bat or in the first year, etc., I see a lot of sellers quit. So I made a video about this recently, actually, why 99% of Etsy sellers fail, and it talks about the mental approach of it. When I first started Etsy, it was mostly handmade people. So back then, those handmade people, they developed a skill over years and years and years. So in other words, they were extremely passionate about the product they were selling, which meant they really, really, really wanted it to work. And they weren't able to just jump around and try different products all willy nilly until something worked. They had to force themselves to do well with their craft. And back then, there was a lot of passion involved. But the next generation of sellers is a lot of people that watch YouTube videos and get a lot of hype from videos that talk about making $1 trillion in 5 seconds with 1 minute a day effort, which is totally cool. I love success stories like that, but that brings a different mentality. So the next generation of sellers inevitably are a lot more print on demand and digital download. Nothing wrong with that, but it also sometimes can take away the original essence of what Etsy was, which was a whole lot of handmade sellers. So there's a balance in there, and for anybody watching, the important part to remember is that no matter what side of the coin you're on, you should have a plan and a motivation to get there so you can look forward so that way if you do stumble, it doesn't totally, topple over a fragile house of cards, if you will.
Right, right. And that's really interesting because I talk about that too. It's like you have to have like an inner why, and like the inner why has to be greater than like the fear of it not working out, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you have to be, there's got to be something in you, and it can't just be money. Oh, I just want money. It has to be like, oh, I want to make sure that I can pay for my kids to go to college. I want to, has to be something stronger. This is a family thing. I want to help my parents. There's got to be something that's driving there. For me, like I look back at my inner why because I was kind of like that avatar that you just explained, where it was like I was just a shark coming in, I have some creativeness, but I wouldn't call myself an artist by any means. I was very savvy with, help finding creative people to work with me. But my inner why at the time was just when you met me, actually, I was just so depressed and like my situation could not be worse. I mean, I was literally sleeping on my grandma's couch and my closet was like in the trunk of my car. So it was like I could not fathom my situation going on for like one day longer at that
Mm,
point. So yeah, I
sure.
think that definitely attributes to how far people tend to go, or how long they're willing to play the game and last. But you know,
Yeah, for sure.
like
Yeah, I didn't know the grandma's couch aspect of your story, so I'm really happy to hear that, rise out of your journey. That's amazing.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely with your help, 100%. So thank you. Yeah, I was just so depressed. Like I was like and just so fueled by anxiety and embarrassment that like this was where I was, and everyone else was like having real jobs and doing adult things and could afford cars and like all this stuff, and it was just like, whoa. So and for people that don't have that intense of just a circumstance that drives their why, do you have any like suggestions on how or someone could find a why? Mine was pretty
Yeah,
motivating.
absolutely. So, like, the first why for most people when they get a lot of excitement, like, the initial spark is make money. That's totally fine. Then once they keep going, the effort there's, like, a type of graph that I've seen before where you start something, you're really excited, but then it dips down for a little bit. And in that like valley of not seeing progress, that's when a lot of people lose hope. But if you keep going through that valley, then it exponentially gets better and you rise out of the ashes or you become successful. So knowing that perseverance um, normally pays off if you know what you're doing, that's one motivator. Another motivator is that if you have a plan in action, and then you can look forward to something. So instead of just endlessly listing things or just throwing things against the wall to see what works. You want to either unless you invented a product, you can typically look at other Etsy stores that have done well in your niche and say, "Okay, I'm gonna get to this many designs with this many listings and this quality of SEO." And until you get to that point, you shouldn't let your mood affect your work ethic because a lot of the times as entrepreneurs, you can get in your own way, and typically you're your own worst enemy when it comes to that aspect. So, making money is a big motivator, and that's honestly why most of us do this. But the inner why comes to a point where you have to realize if you stick with something, then you're able to achieve those things that are past
Yeah.
material like rewards. You could have financial freedom and have more free time, have more time with your family, etc. That's a good inner why.
Yeah.
I know that was a long answer. I hope that was good.
No, that was perfect. No, that was perfect. So, I mean, at this point, you've been in hundreds of different types of Etsy shops with your students. What is like the most surprising thing, or maybe the most common thing that can repeatedly comes up with Etsy sellers?
Good question. So the most common thing well, okay, I'll answer that in 2 parts. I'll say the most common thing that I see and then the most surprising thing that I see. The most surprising thing that I see is that a lot of the stores that I work with, some of the larger ones, the ones that make a lot of money but want to scale up or make a lot of money and then experience a dip, a lot of those store owners, they have essentially fallen into success. Sometimes the big giant Etsy stores you see, they fall into their success, and then when I help, then I help connect dots of, "Oh, hey, this is why this happened. That's why that happened." That's just a surprising thing. This isn't a generalization or anything like that,
Yeah.
but some of the stores I've been in, even seven-figure brands, they don't know some of the basic things that I teach students that are even struggling still. So that's one of the surprising things that some people fall into their success, but you wouldn't know that by going and browsing Etsy. The people that fall into their success typically have a really good product. And that aspect of their success isn't falling into success. They have a good product, they chose a good product, and the product did most of the work. And the algorithm responded by, tending to that human behavior based around that good product. If you have a good product, humans react differently than if you have a boring product. They click on it, they buy it, etc. The algorithm sees that, you get ranking. That's the surprising factor. The most common thing, I'll just pick something small. When I go into a student store, the most common thing is that they'll have a bestseller. I look at their stats, and there's something that brought a lot of traffic in their stats, like their all-time stats, for example. There's something in there that brought a lot of traffic that isn't in their title. It might be in their tags, but it's definitely not in their title. So I'll do work on that aspect.
Mm. Wait, can you go a little deeper? You go into the stats and you're looking for what? You're looking for.
So you go into the all-time, let's say you have a bestseller or a decent seller.
Okay, okay.
Then you go into the stats, the all-time stats, or sometimes that's too long of a period if it's been around for a long time, and you go into, let's say, just last year, that's a good one too, and in you scroll down and you see all the keyword phrases that brought in the most amount of traffic. So, like, the first 5, for example, if there's keyword phrases that brought in a ton of traffic, usually they're in your title or your tags, but sometimes they're not in your title or they're in your tags but mismatched. So like there's one adjective in a tag and then the other noun from that high traffic phrase is in a different tag. The algorithm matched them together and you have a blind spot there. So what I'll
Mm,
do is create a copy of that product, of that listing, and then on the copy make sure that that high traffic search phrase is in the title and the tags.
okay, I have a good question for you then. So that makes a lot of sense. I do that, but probably not as religiously as you do, I guess. But what if that top ranking keyword that's always saying that, because like my products in my second brand, it's like, we're selling the same thing. It's like the same word over and over again. And even though it exists in the title, it exists in the tags, are you saying that I should put that keyword in that first keyword position since they prioritize the first four words?
No, no, you don't have to worry about the order of things.
Okay.
You'll see you'll see words in your traffic phrases in your traffic stats that are either mixed and matched. So there'll be an adjective from the front of your title and a noun at the end of your title. The algorithm matched them together because it noticed people searching that in click your listing a lot, so therefore you're gonna get traffic for it.
Okay. So you're saying
So
just like any, like, oh, there's just like an anomaly word that's you're getting ranked for, but you just don't have it in the title. You're saying it needs to go.
yeah,
Okay, makes sense. Okay.
sometimes it's not as much of an anomaly or a phenomena. It's more of, something that is just, like, barely prioritized in your listing.
Okay, makes sense. Makes
So, in other words, in your tags, but not your title.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Cool. Learns value.
That's just
Um,
one situation too.
yeah,
That's not
yeah.
like the golden rule of SEO or something.
Right. Well, let's move into a little bit more. We kind of touched on this before with Etsy ads, but what is your personal take on Etsy ads? I mean, today, I mean, obviously, I know I'm a huge proponent of Etsy ads, but I mean, there is talk on YouTube right now. Like, you have people making these wild claims. Like, if I was to start a channel today, I'm sorry, if I were to start a Etsy shop today, I would never use Etsy ads. How do you feel about that?
That's totally fine. A lot of the time, first I'll preface what I'm about to say with, most of the time when you hear advice on YouTube, it's not like there's, some kinda stone tablet somewhere and in, like, Josh Silverman's office, the CEO, uh, and if the advice is correct, then it gets chiseled into it. Typically, what you hear on YouTube worked for that person, and it can work for you, but every situation is not one size fits all. So, it's okay to say that you don't need Etsy ads. I would say the store that doesn't need Etsy ads has a really viral product that is either extremely unique or extremely new and can get the algorithm to do the work for it, but most people don't fall into that boat. Most people need help from Etsy ads to get the ball rolling or to sell more. So, while it's possible to do well on Etsy without Etsy ads, most people don't fall into a category that the algorithm will organically do all the work for them to reach six figures, multiple six figures, or seven figures.
Mm.
Most people on Etsy selling, that's just not gonna happen without Etsy ads.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Moving into, we kind of touched on, the next rendition of Etsy. What do you think, if any, is there any viable alternatives to Etsy if somebody is just, you know, I don't know, they want to take a different approach? Obviously, there's Shopify, but is there anything else that would be, I mean, I guess the closest to Etsy, if there is any alternatives?
There's there's, like, multiple handmade Etsy alternatives, but they don't have the buyer volume
Mhm.
as Etsy does. So because of that, I'll say no. There's no platform that is a contender, like, in the same weight class.
Okay.
There's alternatives, there's plenty of alternatives. You can go on any of these random, websites that popped up from angry Etsy sellers that decided to create an I don't know actually the situation, but I, I wouldn't say there's any alternatives in the same weight class as Etsy. There are alternatives. Like, I made a video about this recently about Shopify's Shop app.
Mm.
It's all the Shopify stores into a marketplace. It's kinda like a sleeper right now, and I made this video and I talked about once this gets optimized and once it's, like, a legit platform right now, it's in its infancy, and the search results are, like, curated by an AI bot that you talk to. You could go to shop.app after this video and check it out. But the only thing is, if you're an Etsy seller, then you're mixed in with a bunch of drop shipping stores, anything stores. So it's essentially like going on Amazon
Mm.
or eBay or something like that in terms of who you're gonna be next to. Then the other alternative, which is new this year, is TikTok Shop, which again, you're gonna be next to drop shippers, you're gonna be next to everything. So you better know what if you're gonna go it's like going into the Thunderdome essentially. If you go there, you better know what you're doing because you're not gonna be competing against Etsy sellers. You're gonna be competing against the entire world. You're gonna be, competing against the Walmart of the internet.
Mm.
So, you and if you go on TikTok Shop, you have to be good at short form content. With TikTok Shop, you can link your product in your videos, and there's an entire marketplace on TikTok Shop. Lots of people are talking about it, mostly drop shippers on YouTube right now. So if you go on any of those 2 platforms, Shopify app or TikTok Shop, you have to know what you're doing. And those are alternatives, yes, but it's not in the same weight class as Etsy.
Mm. I think we're seeing a recurring trend here. It all comes back to content.
For sure.
Everyone wants to be entertained. Well, I guess the argument there is TikTok Shop it's social media, right? People aren't going to TikTok to buy something, but Shopify app, or it's called Shopify app. Shopify.
Shop.app.
Shop.app. Yeah, like people there, I guess, they're searching for the products they have to buy. But okay, wow, that's super interesting. Just for my curiosity, do you know the fees on either of those platforms?
I don't. I don't have it written down. Uh, I am on both with other brands of mine.
Okay. Well, we'll probably make videos about it later on, so that's okay. Wow, you gave us a lot of really awesome, valuable information. Probably one of my favorite podcasts so far that we've shot. You can already tell. But Dave, more serious question. What do you think your best trait is as an entrepreneur?
Okay, yeah, I wasn't really ready for that question. You did tell me there were some that I didn't weren't gonna know about. So I would say the I have a desire to do unique things. Like the first store on Etsy that I did well with, I made something that no one else made. There was not anybody making it. I made something I was new to this product. I made it myself. I was a woodworker. I figured something out and I made it brand new. So that contributed to my success with my first Etsy store. Then as an entrepreneur nowadays, the brand that I'm focused on right now, I there's nobody else doing that as well. So
Mhm.
my favorite trait about myself, I guess, is that I want to do something unique that has meaning and has purpose to myself or some kind of valuable aspect to it.
Mhm.
Because I've tried things that other people promote, like drop shipping, for example. I've done print on demand plenty of times. I have a print on demand store now, but it doesn't bring the value to my life. This is just me talking.
Mhm.
It doesn't bring the value to my life that I'm looking for as an entrepreneur. I wanna be challenged and I wanna overcome challenges knowing that I did it from my own, like, intelligence and fresh thinking rather than
Mhm.
following just, like, a super hype strategy that, you know so just being unique. That I'll
No,
end it there.
I love that, and I definitely think that's, a part of why, you are just such a real guy, and it just you mean a lot to me, more than you know, so I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, but for the last question here, what is something that you are never going to stop striving for until death stops you?
Okay. Yeah,
Loaded
okay. Something I'll
question.
never stop striving for until I die is to to help other people. That's one thing, and to live appropriately, to live righteously. I am Christian, so I wanna live what the Bible calls righteously, and I want to help other people. I have my channel add to cart to help people make money because a lot of people's problems come from money, so it's to help
Mhm,
people get out of those stressful situations or to avoid them, right?
mhm,
But also to help people just just to help people. That's one thing I'll never not strive for. And then the next thing I won't ever stop striving for until I die, to have financial freedom that doesn't require me to be a wage slave, essentially. I don't
create
want
create your own
to
destiny.
yeah, to create my own destiny and be unique with it and have it be my own journey and have fun with that and
Mm.
have a lot of meaningful life experiences in that.
Awesome. That is freaking awesome. Well, all right, Dave. Obviously, we're going to link your channel in the description on YouTube and on the podcast. It will be also in the description as well. Do you have any? I believe you had like an ebook or something we were sharing today as well, or something that
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. So I'm going to share 2 things. I'll share my Etsy Ads cheat sheet, a free ebook, and then I'll also share the six-figure seller program, which is a full course of mine.
Oh, awesome. Super cool. Well, thank you, Dave, so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your videos because I know you just reactivated your channel here. So, and your videos are doing very well. So, I'm excited to see what's to come in 2024 for Add to Cart.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.